everyone. Welcome to another week of working on our marriages together through ReEngage. My name is Brock. If we haven't had the chance to meet, and I'll be talking to you for a few moments about something that I've learned along the way in marriage, and I think can really be a foundational principle for helping us have beautiful, successful marriages. Some of you may have heard me talk about him before. I've been accused of talking about this marriage researcher too much, but Dr. John Gottman is a researcher of marriages and kind of gains information. And so he's kind of put couples into two categories. There's the masters category, those that are seemingly doing it well, and there's the disasters category, the ones that are having a difficult time. And so one of the things that he squarely puts in the idea of the masters is this idea that we'll talk about today called accepting influence. Okay? And so is basically he's saying that the disaster category kind of looks like this. If one partner is winning all the time, and they're not accepting influence, they're not hearing the other person, then in reality they're losing. And that's the disaster category. But the master category says that I really want to hear what you have to say and I want to gain your opinion. You're accepting influence from that other person. In fact, his research shows that if you don't accept your partner's influence, there's an 81% chance that that couple is going to split up or at least be involved in some very combative relationship dynamics. So here's the definition. If it's so important, and I think it is important for us to really monitor and look at ourselves and say, am I accepting influence? Here's a definition. Accepting influence means taking your partner's opinion into account, okay? And being open to use his or her input to decide together on what to do as a couple. So basically it means that both of you get a say in things and both people feel heard and valued in that relationship. And so Gottman would say, if that's the case, then you're probably in a really good spot. And if one person doesn't feel that way, you're sliding a little bit toward the disaster side. And so the question then might be very quickly for you and for me is like, am I accepting my partner's influence because I don't want to fall in that disasters category? And again, we're drawing the circle around ourselves and saying, what can I change or what do I need to get better at? So are you good at accepting your partner's influence? Well, we have a little test to see if you are. So if you want to, you can pause the video right now or just do this later, but go to Google. You've heard of Google before, I hope. And Google Love Quiz Accepting Influence. Maybe Gottman at the end, Gottman. Love Quiz Accepting Influence. Take that quiz, get an idea maybe of what they're talking about, and are you good at accepting influence because we want to get better at this marriage thing. But contrary to what we typically think about leadership, we often think if we kind of take this stance and kind of really be strong and firm about our relationships, then we're going to gain respect that way. But contrary to that, it doesn't really work that way. Why? Because I really do believe in business as well as our relationships, and especially in our marriage relationship, when people don't feel heard, don't feel valued, they don't feel respected. But when people feel heard, they feel a lot of respect for that other person. And when they feel respected, then they kind of have warmer feelings. They kind of don't slide into that negative interpretation stuff that goes on. And so they're living at a more blissful rate than when we try to power it up. And so it's my understanding of couples, and this is rocket science here, that if you take two people, here's person one, they have gifts, talents, unique, beautiful qualities about them, as every human being does. But they also have flaws and sins and inconsistencies. Okay? So you take that person, and then you take person two, and they would have beautiful qualities and characteristics about them, but they would also have flaws and inconsistencies. And so what happens is we go through life and we try to heighten our good things about us and minimize our weaknesses because we don't want people to see those things about us because that's embarrassing. But what happens when we get married, it's like your spouse is the greatest, highest strength, full-length mirror in the world, and it's held up to you, and your sins and your flaws and your inconsistencies are exposed like in no other relationship. At work, we can tend to hide things in other public arenas, but at home, we just can't hide. We're really exposed for who we are. And so, your spouse is a full-length mirror to expose who you really are. So let me explain how that kind of works in my relationship. So when we got married, I thought I had an idea of what hard work and generosity were really about. But as I married my wife and I saw those characteristics exhibited in her, I realized I had no idea what hard work and generosity were. So if I accepted her influence, then I could become a little bit harder of a worker, and I could be more generous and not so tight with my time and with my money and all the things that I was. But I also, in the light of my wife being that full-length mirror, kind of saw in her that I was unfortunately a little lazy. I wasn't a very good listener. I didn't like bad news about anything, me or the world around me, because it kind of caused this anxiety inside of me. I was sensitive. I liked to blame others when things went wrong. So, simultaneously in my relationship, in terms of accepting influence, I was seeing my flaws. I didn't want to see my flaws, but I was becoming a better person. And so I believe then, because of all that stuff and accepting influence, that God gave us marriage to make us more complete than we ever could be on our own. Because as we see this other person that we can't hide from, we can see beautiful qualities in them that we might emulate and become better people. Like on our own, these two people are going to be okay, but together, if we take the beauty, we can really become great people from that. But at the same time, they are that folding mirror holding up to us our sins. And boy, that's hard to take, but we can work with that. In Hebrews chapter 10, verses 19 through 25, this is an interesting passage written to these people that were called to persevere in difficult times and basically don't give up. And he says, therefore, in verse 19, brothers, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place, the very presence of God, by the blood of Jesus, by what Jesus has done for us, by a new living way opened for us through the curtain that is his body. So that curtain has been pulled open because of the sacrifice of Jesus. And we can go right into the very presence of God. We have access to God himself. And since we have a great priest over the house of God, that's Jesus, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience and having our bodies washed with pure water. So we have full confidence because of what Jesus has done for us to enter the very presence of God, to allow us to experience his holiness and his way and his truth. Because of those things, he says, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promises is faithful. So because of what Jesus has done for us, we can hold on that God is going to help us become better people. God is going to help us to be more holy, to be more like him. We can hold on to that. And then he says, because of that, because of what Jesus has done for you and he's got you on this journey, here's what you should do. Let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. So basically, let us be an influence toward others. How can we accept influence from other people so that we can all grow because of what Jesus has done for us, because of that access we have to this great and mighty God? And finally, he says, let us not give up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but let us encourage one another, all the more as you see the day when he might return approaching. So in Hebrews, it says that we have confidence, we have access to God, the changer of our souls. We can change. He is our hope, he's our anchor. We might swerve, but he's stable, he's that anchor. And because of those things, we're to spur one another on or give influence to other people so they can change and grow. But community, being with other people, is a very necessary ingredient for all that to happen. And so accepting influence starts with God, is initiated by God, sustained by God, and given us power to do this thing. All right, so accepting influence then, we've established, I hope, is a very marital research-based idea. It's a very biblical idea. So why is it so difficult to do? Why is it so difficult to implement? Especially, unfortunately, seems like a lot of time for us men. So I read a book a few years ago by a psychologist named Carol Dweck, and it's called Fixed Mindset versus Growth Mindset. Beautiful book if you ever get a chance to read it. And I think it gives us a little answer why this is so difficult, at least why it was for me. So she said there's two kind of mindsets as we approach situations in life, and there's the fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset kind of has this idea that if I were to go in and take an algebra test and fail at that algebra test, the fixed mindset would say my qualities, my abilities are fixed. So obviously I stink at algebra, so I should give up. And oftentimes, Carol Dweck says it's difficult for those people to advance and do better things in life because they try something, I'm not good at it, I stink, I suck, I'm just going to go to the things that I like, I'm out. So Gottman might call this mindset, if he could, a disaster mindset, a disaster couple mindset. And this was me for a lot of years. If I tried something, wasn't good at it, I gave up. My classic example is I was playing, my friends wanted me to play roller hockey, which in retrospect, why did I even want to try roller hockey? But in roller hockey, I went out, I was a decent little skater, nothing great, never played hockey before, and was awful. The worst one there by a long shot. And in my mind, I said, I'm never going to do that again because I'm no good at it naturally. I'm out, I stink. That's a fixed mindset. But Carol Dweck says the better mindset, another mindset to look at, is a growth mindset. And so in that same example, the algebra test, that if I were to go take an algebra test and fail it, I wouldn't say, oh, I must be horrible at algebra, I got to give up. I would say, I need to get some better skills. I need to get some training. Need to get feedback from others in order to get better. I can grow in this. And she says those people are the ones that seem to get ahead, that have that mentality. An obstacle in a growth mindset person is not an end, but it's an opportunity for change and for growth. Gottman might call this the master's mindset. Hearing what people think, getting their feedback, it is the path to growth. No feedback, N-O, no growth, N-O. We don't. It's bound together for us to really grow. We have to get feedback from other people, and this is us in marriage. It's the ultimate spot where that mirror is held up to us like no other place for us to get feedback. And so here's an incredible opportunity for us to grow and us to change. This is ReEngage, I believe, is a growth mindset. With new tools, with God's help, with community, all the things we read in Hebrews, our marriage can be a place where we grow and change and can be ultimately a source of joy and hope for all of us. So, accepting influence in our marriage looks like this then. I need to learn about my gifts from my spouse and my flaws. If I find out the flaws, it doesn't mean I'm bad at marriage, I'm a bad human being. It just means they're being exposed. So this is an opportunity for me to grow. Because if I don't get feedback and input, I can't grow, I get stuck. So marriage is a beautiful place to do that. My spouse is the most realistic mirror of them all. And I think if we accept influence then from our spouse, it moves from an I relationship that is about me winning to an us relationship, which is about us growing as individuals and as a couple. I really do believe, and according to the Gottman's research and according to my experiences in life, this is one of the best things we can do for our relationships. Hearing what the other person thinks, then you and I are both better for it. And then because of that, if we hear what another person thinks, you and I might someday in marriage get presented with a green jacket. It's an attempt at a golf analogy. I let it sink in there for a moment because we're now masters at the Masters golf tournament. You get a green jacket. So, but again, accepting influence is what the masters do in relationships and marriage. So how do you do this practically? So again, I'd go take that quiz, see where you're lacking or doing well at. Love quiz, accepting influence, Gottman. Google that, see what you get. Then I think we need to camp out on a few ideas. And this is my cheesy way of making an analogy. Camp means this, C. You need community. You can't do this alone. If you try to do it alone, it's not going to happen. We need other men or women, if we're female, to speak into our lives and to let us know maybe some areas we can grow. We need to hear stories of what others are doing well or others doing not well so we can grow. We need to get feedback and learn from our friends. Dive in. Get feedback here at ReEngage. Embrace this experience. It's a short experience, long-term in life. Dive in, embrace the opinions of others. Like, what does it seem like I'm doing great at marriage? What does it seem like I'm not doing so great? That's the path to growth. We don't get that feedback, we don't get growth. So we have C, community. A stands for ask. Maybe if you're bold enough, ask your spouse, what is one area maybe where I could do better in our marriage? What is one area where I can improve? Maybe what is one area where I'm doing well? I can continue to do that. If we can't ask our spouse, again, going back and asking our ReEngage group, but asking simple questions, I think is huge. The M in camp stands for model. We have to be the change we want to be. So we draw the circle around ourselves and say, I'm not going to worry about them accepting influence. What am I doing to accept influence? Identify where we need to grow, identify those weaknesses, get that feedback, start to work on those areas through all the things we've mentioned as a part of ReEngage. The other thing that I think is important in that idea of modeling is oftentimes if we so get influence on the focus on the negative, it starts to wear on us. So Gottman also says there needs to be a 5-to-1 ratio of compliments to negative things. And so be the influencer, because when people feel accepted, they gain respect. And so give some more compliments, some thank yous. Point out things that they're doing well. And the last one, CAMP, we're going to camp out on these things to accept influence, is pray. Pray together with your spouse. It's a beautiful thing to do. Pray that you'd both accept influence from each other, from others, from the Lord. And pray for God to maybe give you peace and hope if you do have a fixed mindset where you feel like any negative feedback might say how bad you are. Instead, God, help me understand that feedback doesn't mean that I'm flawed, that I'm a horrible human being, that I'm garbage. Feedback is just simply the mechanism that you've given us to grow and be better people. And together, my spouse and I, we can learn from the beauty in each other and grow and become better people. We can help each other with our weaknesses so we're not hurting others or hurting our children or hurting the world around us, but we can grow and learn those things and we can become better people. So it's my prayer for all of us. So Lord, help us. Help us, God, to accept influence from others around us, but especially our spouse. Thank you guys for your time.